So these are our service ports, and our service ports allow us to hook our hose so that we can get the pressure to convert it to a saturated temperature. Here I have that valve core, and that's what's sensitive. That is the valve keeping refrigerant from leaking out. We also need to make sure that valve is protected by some kind of a cap. And the most common type of cap we see today is a cap like this plastic cap. I don't like these caps because they are known for leaking. We always have to check to make sure there's an O-ring in there. I've pulled the O-ring out of this one so we can see it, and this O-ring. So this is the O-ring that we pulled out, and we can see that it's very damaged. It doesn't even sit flat. This O-ring definitely is leaking. Here you can see all these little grooves in here where the O-ring was crooked and then it was tightened on. So this O-ring will not seal anymore. So just because it has an O-ring still isn't enough. We want to make sure that O-ring is in good shape, and this one is obviously gone. It is shot. It's no good. Here I have the brass style cap, and inside of this brass cap we can see that there is an O-ring right inside of there. That rubber O-ring is in really good shape. As we turn it, we see there's no damaged spots in it. This brass is not going to leak any refrigerant, so this is going to be the ideal cap that I like to use. Also, it has a Schrader core removal tool, which is fairly irrelevant for most of our needs, but this is a nice cap. Here's an example of another cap that's very similar, and this cap, somebody allowed the O-ring to fall out. Somebody put this on a unit, and it's still going to leak without that O-ring, so we want to make sure that that O-ring is in there. This is the plastic one or these brass ones. I prefer to replace the plastic caps with these brass caps with that O-ring in there. This is going to last a very long time. It's got these nice grooves in the side so we can get our fingers on it to get a good grip to loosen them and tighten them back up. But they just simply thread right on top of there. A little extra turn, nice and tight. It's going to last a very long time. There is another option for caps, and you'll see these with these hex style heads on them. This style is the only style that does not use any kind of an O-ring. This is a flare style fitting. If we see inside of there, it's actually coned. And what that means is when we put this valve cap on here, it tightens up. But just hand loose, you cannot get this tight enough for it to seal. So you have to use some kind of an adjustable wrench. What we're going to do is put that wrench on here and just give it just a little bit extra. That's all it takes to tighten it up. Now the problem with these is I'll see techs and they will just really tighten them up really hard. And when they tighten them up, they'll actually make this so hard that it'll break when they tighten it up, or worse, they tighten it up so bad the next guy is trying to loosen it and it will actually spin this piece off. We can imagine if this whole stem breaks off, all the refrigerant just dumps out of that system. So it's very important to make sure that when you tighten these up, finger tight and then just a little bit extra to snug it in. Don't use any kind of a leak lock on here. If you have this style cap and it's still leaking, just replace the cap. Don't use any kind of sealant or anything on there. It's going to cause a problem when the next guy tries to take this connection back off. In the older days, they used a hex nut here, and we could put a backup wrench here and on this side, so that way we wouldn't worry about rounding those off. But in the name of manufacturing and cost, they no longer do that. In the name of manufacturing and cost, we've also gone to these really horrible plastic ones. So a great compromise in the middle is these brass caps with a rubber O-ring in it. They screw on fast, they unscrew fast. It's very easy to work with. That's what I prefer to use. Now, as we go through and progress through time, there's some issues with people stealing refrigerant and people sniffing or trying to get high on refrigerant, which is horrible because it doesn't do anything for the body other than displace oxygen. And your brain does crazy things when there's not enough oxygen. Anyways, moving on, a lot of codes now require some kind of a locking cap. So here's an example of what that locking cap would look like. So a lot of places now require a locking cap. So here's what that locking cap would look like. You can spin this top piece all day long and it will not come loose. You're going to have some kind of a tool to loosen that. The tool that I prefer using is this. It has this really cool U-joint type head on it. I can get it into any tight areas, and with the shape of this piece right here fits in with the shape of that hole. And what we do is we stick this in. So if we see the size of this, the shape of the hole and the shape of this fitting, they match together. So what we do is we put them together, give this a little twist. Now it will allow this whole entire fitting to unscrew. Voila, now we have access. We put it back on, we do the same exact thing. Nice and firm. Then I back it off, take the fitting out, and now we are locked and secure. Some codes in some cities require this on all new units. You have to check your local code. Even in places that the codes do not require it, a lot of companies promote and use these to keep other people from messing with the refrigerant charge. You'll have to check with your local area, your local company to see what's best for you. I do like them for the fact that it keeps other people from messing with the units. What I don't like about them is you have these different style keys to keep. Now there is another smaller style key you can use, and then make a key like this. And this is a nice small key, and it's got the two different sizes on it. The problem is, if you think about using this key in a very tight area, you have to spin all of your keys. So it's very important if you're going to use this style that you use some kind of a hook or a quick connect so you can disconnect this from your keys and then connect it back on. If you buy them in a package, you look at it something like this. You can buy them pre-made, and sometimes you can actually buy them with the key, and this is showing the two different types of keys. There's other brands, of course, as well. You have another brand called the Shield, and the Shield is really cool because it has these plastic covers over it. You pull this plastic cover off, and this is the actual locking cap. Very same way, when you thread this on, the top just spins. You have to have a key that fits inside of here. Now, there's a school in Phoenix that used a bunch of my tools, and they did not return my keys, amongst other things, so never let anybody borrow your tools. But there's a key that fits in here. If you're going to do air conditioning refrigeration work, you're going to have, unfortunately, all the keys for all the different people that use all the different types. These are just two of the most common types of locking caps that we see. There was another type that was built that actually used a magnet. So you had a really cool tool like this that fit on top of it. The magnet would pull it up and you can unscrew it. I loved that one. It was my favorite one, but unfortunately it was discontinued. But this tool has two different sizes with the magnets built in, and it also has something really cool. It had the key for the other style. There is another style locking cap that uses the same end as our Schrader core removal system that you can put on the end to unscrew it. As we go through time, I'm sure there'll be more and more advances of these and more types. Whether you like them or not, it's one of the things that we do have to deal with. There is a trick for getting these off without the key. It does ruin the component, and I'm not going to show that in the video because some things we just don't need to share worldwide.